TO plays.
Hey there, this is Tio. Welcome back to my playthrough of Kerbal Space Program, my career mode. I think this is my 5th video, and where we left off last video, I rescued a couple Kerbals in orbit. I've got a third Kerbal who's in a higher orbit. It's going to take a different vehicle to get to him. I'm also pretty ready, itching to go land on the moon. I've got a lot of good tech that I haven't used yet, and I'm ready to pick up some new missions. I don't think I need to upgrade any of the buildings just yet. I've got an important one already knocked out with the astronaut complex. The next one's going to be allow the astronauts to do. Oh, which one is it? One of these allows them to. Okay, this one allows them to collect surface samples, which would be really good when I get to the moon. But that's going to eat a lot of my funds, 451. So probably not going to do that right now. Like I said in my last video, once you get to the moon, you can go back as many times as you want. So I've got a lot of money from contracts between now and then, so I'm not really in a rush to pay for that. Let's see, I've got another Explorer contract. This one's exploring the moon. I'd like you to go to the moon and stay there in a nice stable orbit. So last time I got to the moon, I just passed by. Didn't use any fuel to slow down when I was there. This one's saying, nope, you gotta park in orbit of the moon for science. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that. Got another rescue mission. Got 2 more rescue missions. What could go wrong with rescue missions, right? I'm sure these are nice and low. It says low curve in orbit. Always gonna pick those up. Can never have too many Kerbonauts. And that's it. I'll leave it at that. I don't think I want any more missions. Rescue 3 Kerbonauts. Orbit around the moon. Plant the flag on the moon. Let's go to our vehicle assembly building and see what we can do. I mentioned last time I really need to save that third Kerbal in orbit because I'm worried it'll get more and more difficult, or it'll get more unpredictable as their orbit is intersecting the moon's. So I may just bite the bullet and do that mission and get it over with. I'm really anxious to go and launch a satellite, and I'm thinking my first satellite's going to be to the moon, though. So the last time I launched this to rescue some Kerbonauts, my weight distribution was terrible, and this thing flipped on me. So what should I do? If I'm coming in hot on this end, I could put a heat shield there and move the parachutes. In this case, I don't need a rescue for 3. I just need a rescue for 1, technically. So let's take my probe core and my parachutes, solar panels. Let's ditch that bad boy. See if I've got any structural units. Yes, this is one of the things that I was referring to earlier that I hope that I use to distribute my weight a little better. I'm not going to have the big parachute that sits on top of there just yet, but that's alright. Don't need it. I can use 3 of these. I can use 2 of these. And that should be plenty. So if I remember correctly, the door is wherever there is not an orange strobe chute, which would be here. This is the door. But sometimes you don't see necessarily where this bracket is. I can also put my solar panels down here. Right. So that reduces my weight. This is definitely going to be the heavier side. It's going to splash down in that direction. Definitely also gain some delta V. Let me put my decoupler there. Alright, so this is good to launch. I can go get my Kerbal who's stranded way far out there. Make sure my craft is empty. Yep, don't want anybody in there. Oh, I forgot to put my probe back on. Thank you, KSP. build mode. I can snap it in there. Yeah, let's do that. Alright. Looks weird, but gets the job done. No crew, good. Battery. Probably don't necessarily need the battery. This one's got 50 charge. This one's got 10. Doesn't hurt to have the battery. We're going to recover it. Because we have to recover it, because we're recovering the Kerbal.
So at this point, I decided it would be a good idea to turn off my microphone. And I recorded a lot of footage in the next few videos this way where I all of a sudden just stopped narrating chunks. So I'll do my best to explain what I did and why I did it. But the perk, and I think this is the reason I stopped my audio in the first place, was I can speed up the monotonous bits. So like this launch, for instance, I can do it at 4 times normal speed. And you've already seen me launch vessels into space. I think once I get through the footage that I recorded, I'll go back to narrating as I go, because that's what a traditional Let's Play would be like. But yeah, here you see me getting into orbit. I did try to match the inclination of my target as best I could, because I knew if I went 90 degrees like normal, I would have a lot of inclination change to make and burn a lot of extra fuel. So I think I got about as close as I could have, and I'll make the rest of my inclination change here in a second once I'm in orbit. There you can see that's still a pretty good difference. About less than 200 meters per second to change my inclination, which isn't too bad. It would have been a whole lot worse than that. So next, once my plane matches the target, I'm going to try to find a good maneuver node that'll put me on an intersect where we're less than a few hundred kilometers from each other, which ordinarily that's a pretty big distance, but considering how big the orbit is, once I get to about 200 to 300 kilometers apart, then I can dial it in little by little as I approach the target, and eventually as I pass the target, I hopefully would be less than 10 kilometers or so. And let's see, making my first burn. This is just to get me from my small orbit around Kerbal to a big wide orbit to get closer to the target. There we go. And there you see, about halfway I'm setting another maneuver node. Usually about halfway is when you want to start making your fine adjustments. So the goal here with this maneuver is just to take the 300 kilometers and shrink that as much as possible. So I'll just play with normal, anti-normal, prograde, retrograde. I don't need to make any inclination changes because we're on the same plane. So it's just 2 different directions that I can adjust. There we go, a small burn. Was it less than 10 meters per second? Yeah, getting closer. So we'll do another adjustment. Yeah, that's all it is being patient. If you wanted to, you could probably fine tune in fewer adjustments, but I tend to do it in incremental steps like this, just because. That's part of the reason why I bring extra fuel, just to have room for error. So another thing to think about, if and when you get your closest approach within a few kilometers, your relative velocity is going to be significant. So in this case, it was a few hundred meters per second different. So I needed to have that extra fuel just to match, just to reduce the difference in our speeds. And now that I've gotten our relative speed lower, I burn towards the target. And usually when you're that far apart, when you're more than a few kilometers away from the target, I tend to add quite a bit more delta V towards the target than I normally would. Usually if you're within a kilometer, you only need to burn towards the target a few, less than 10 meters per second will do it just fine. But further than that, I feel you have to go a lot faster to close the gap faster. Otherwise, you continue to drift apart, and you're not going to get much closer in your orbit fast enough. And there you have it. I got my my Kerbal within a kilometer of my rescue craft, which means he can do his EVA, and he can use his jetpack, his own RCS, to get to the rescue pod. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes if I have a nice enough vehicle, I'll get right up and close to the Kerbal that I'm trying to rescue. But in this case, I was ready to do my EVA, just get him into the rescue pod. he can navigate and control himself much more nimbly than the craft that I built. So, and there you have it. There's the door. I find with these round pods, sometimes it can be difficult to find the door, but once you've done it enough, you start to remember which side it's on. And now it's just a matter of lowering my periapsis back into Kerbin's atmosphere. That's a good thing about that that non-circular orbit, whatever you want to call it. The periapsis was already really low, so I didn't need a whole lot of fuel to get back home. So there we go, ditching the rest of my fuel, ditching my engine, and the design changes I made really worked well. The distribution of weight is causing the craft to, well, never mind, to fall with the heat shield down, but it is acting a little squirrely. But not going too fast, not too much heat to worry about. And there we go. I've re-entered. Once I get to a few hundred meters per second, I pop my chutes, and I'm about to splash down on Kerbin. So I think that's enough rescue missions for the time being. The next mission, I'm definitely going to want to go to the Mun. Can't wait to show you guys. This won't exactly mimic my first Mun mission, but it'll be the first Mun mission for this campaign. So as always, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please hit the like button or leave a comment. Feel free to submit an idea. Appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you next time.